101.5 FM, Moreton Bay Area's #1 radio station, giving you the latest and greatest hits live in the air, and that's a brand new. We're the second radio station in Brisbane to play that. Aren't we lucky? And we're also lucky to have also Chippendale. Good morning.
Good morning, Shane. How are you?
How are you? Now, I understand now we've got a slightly kind of a revampy sort of thing going on with the real estate program, because I love what we do.
Yes.
I love what you talk about. The stuff is really important, but it's only going to be on once a fortnight, I understand
That
now.
is my understanding of it, yes.
Well, that's okay. You and I will get together. And look, if you feel you have to come on here every week, I will not knock you back.
Thank you for that, but we'll
All right.
see how time goes, Shane.
Yeah, I know. Time is precious because you are very, very busy.
Yes,
What's
well, I'll
on-
tell you what, real estate's getting a little bit busier, which is lovely for everybody.
The housing market in America, I was reading the other day, is going up, 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 up.
Yeah.
What's it like in Australia? Is there an upward swing
Look,
of
there is
sorts?
definitely more activity.
Yeah?
Could you say to me the prices are going up, up, up? No.
No.
I think there's been a stability in pricing. I think, in my opinion, I think it'll be some years before we see up, up, up.
Yeah.
I think with the global financial crisis, I think banks, everybody's just that little bit more reserved.
Well, talking about the reserve, just
Yes.
on that,
Yes.
I understand the rates have been kept on hold.
Correct.
There is strong consensus by the economic community. Many of the leading economists are all predicting that there's a likelihood of continued stagnation as far as our rates are concerned. If anything, they may even come down to as low as 2%. That's a prediction for this year. But because we're in election year, towards the election year month, which will be in September, the rates will go up because of asset baskets. They call it the value of the asset basket that we have will be underpinned, underweighted, and they want to increase the level of that against the foreign currencies. It's rather complicated because it's
Very
international
complicated.
globalism, but
Yep.
I understand that rates may go up during that month. Until then, it'll either stay where it is or maybe a slight dip,
Yeah.
maybe as low as 1 whole percentage point down to 2.
Time will tell.
Yes.
And all the experts, there are so many varying opinions by various experts that I just don't think any of us truly know, exactly what it will come down to.
I don't predict to know any of it. I'm not just going on what many of the experts are currently
Yes, I
suggesting.
understand.
They think that that's where it'll head.
Yeah.
By no means, if it doesn't go that way, don't shoot me and don't shoot them. It's just a
Yeah,
consensus
exactly.
that is out there at the moment.
I think it would be a concern if we got down to 2%.
Well, now Europe has gone down.
Yeah, I know.
They're down around the 1.5 mark. Japan's at 0. And America's not far behind them. They're around 2 to 3%, somewhere in that order. And don't quote me on the figures because I don't really know the figures. I just know roughly where they're about. Far lower than what we are.
Yes.
And you just wonder how they make money out of it.
Exactly. And the thing that has protected, and without going into all of the ins and outs, and whilst all of us have suffered with the global financial crisis, the one thing that has kept our country in a little bit more of a balance is the governance that the banks are held under in this country.
Well, they do take a lot into consideration. They don't always get it right. They admit that themselves, but they do more often than not get the balance just about right. Because we're an isolated country,
Definitely.
we more or less have to look after ourselves, and we have been somewhat insulated by the effects of around the world. It does affect us, but have got that insulative property here in our own economic base that allows us to withstand some of the pressures from external, which is good.
Yes, it is.
I've always felt that Australia it should never be selling its assets overseas, making us exposed to the worldwide markets, that we should be able to hold our own. We have a big enough country, enough population here to do that. And there's enough people buying houses, selling houses, and families exploding, and, there's growth rates and all the rest of it. There should be no reason at all why we should not be able to insulate ourselves from the effects of overseas.
Okay.
That's my view, anyway. Whether or not,
Unfortunately,
but
we
whether,
always do be affected by them, yes.
But yes,
To a degree.
oh yes, I agree. But it'd be nice to think that we could do that. I've always held that belief because we are a proud nation,
Oh, very much so.
and we've always had
We're
a long
still
legacy.
lacking a little in population.
Well, yeah. How much more do you think we should get up to?
Oh, I don't know. Don't ask me that one. No idea. I can tell you I won't be adding to the population,
Okay.
that's for sure.
What's on the agenda for today?
Okay, we have some buying and selling tips. And look, I know I've gone over similar things like this before, but I just thought with the market improving a little, and there's people out there that are stepping into the market for the first time, and there's also people out there that haven't been in the market for maybe, 10, 12, 20 years, and all of a
Indeed.
sudden they're downsizing, or, they're doing different things, and you forget. You forget, what's involved, what's the charges, what's this, what's that. So I thought we'd do a little bit of a rundown on that.
A bit of a checklist.
Yeah, a
things
little
that
bit of a checklist.
Good idea.
And I'm not trying to scare anyone. It's just
No.
some sensible advice that, take it on board and just remember these things when you're looking at buying and selling. It's more about cost.
And it's also about efficiency too, and not
Definitely.
saying, "Oh, gee, I forgot that thing." The most important thing.
Exactly.
Yes,
Nothing worse than you get to settlement and then all of a sudden you haven't counted on X amount of dollars and you think, where the heck am I going to get
like
that
stamp
from?
duty or something.
All those sorts of things, yeah.
Because
Yep.
you do have to factor it all in. Otherwise,
Definitely.
you'd be wondering where all the dollars go. Mm-hmm. So what else we got on the agenda?
Okay, I wanted just to reply. The other fortnight we asked the question about the rebate for solar.
Yes.
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 Okay. Yes. Obviously it still is available. It is down to the 8%, the 8 cents rebate that you get.
Okay.
So just confirm that still is available. I
Okay.
rang our state member and asked that question. Also, when we get a bit more time, I want to go on to about bond loans online, and that reflects on our tenants
Okay.
and things like that.
Yep.
And a little bit about the legislation updates. Now, again, this was before Christmas. They stated that they were asking for opinions by tenants, landlords, all of that, and
Yes,
they wanted
we did
feedback.
cover that. We did cover that.
So these are recommendations only at this stage, but these are things that the REIQ will be talking to the government about.
And
to
how much time do we have before they actually put those two?
I don't know yet.
So is there still time for people to have their input?
No, the input was closed off as at January, I believe.
Okay, but we can talk about
Yes.
what those recommendations
Yes,
are.
definitely.
Okay.
Yep, and then
Sounding
we'll
good.
cover some statistics and things if we have time.
Statistics, I love those,
Oh, they scare me, but anyway.
but they help you do your
Yeah,
job.
of course they do, but you look at them sometimes and think, oh my goodness.
We got some Pink right now here at 101.5 FM. You love Pink, don't you?
I love Pink. Saw
Let's
her
get the
in
party
concert.
started. We'll talk more on real estate up next. Love to see you too as well. Nice to have your company. It's 21 past right now, and now going through our checklist of things to do when you're looking to get back into the market, as it
Most
were.
definitely. First of all, I'll give some buyers some tips.
All right.
Okay, it's really basic stuff, but buying and selling homes is very stressful, and there's a lot that can not go according to plan. So the first thing for a buyer, have you seen your banker or broker to apply for a loan? Shop around. There's all different deals and things out there these days. Pretty important to try and get yourself a pre-approval. Now, most banking institution or financial organisations usually give you about 90 days pre-approval. There is one company out there at this point in time offering 120 days. So I'll let you do the shopping around for that. But ask questions, talk to them and see what you find out there. Also, have you allowed for your legal costs? Now, again, get your quotes from all your solicitors. Also, things to ask for are costs of searches. Excuse me. They can vary depending on whatever council or whatever you're in that you're buying into, and what the searches are that you prefer. Like, there's umpteen dozen searches you can get. Obviously, not all of them are valid to what you want, but check those sorts of things out. Having the property transferred into your name once it has settled. Again, it's not always incorporated into your bank loan, so check that with your financier. Okay? Another thing, have you been advised of the exact amount the bank will give you at settlement? Everyone just, naturally assumes it's X amount of dollars that you've borrowed. Banks normally deduct their fees and charges from the loan amount you've been approved for, so allow for any difference. So just being prepared, allow for those sorts of things.
Now, of course, you can shop around on all of these things.
Definitely.
You can go to different lawyers, see what they charge. You can go to
Exactly.
different banks, see what they charge. Is there a guidebook?
Well, there's always the Law Society that you can refer to.
Okay.
But just look, honestly, try and stay local, because the local lawyers and solicitors are current and familiar with all of the council requirements and everything like that. So try and stay local, because the guys in town know all those things. So that's one point as well.
I'm a great believer, too, in asking, because every now and then, as a renter, not as a buyer or anything, but that will come in time, let me
Yep,
say.
yep.
But as a renter, every now and then we'll come across little issues, and I wonder what my rights are, and I'll look through
RTA.
nothing
Little green Bible.
Yeah, and I'll read through that, and sometimes it doesn't always come clear in the brain. I've gone to different real estate
Yeah.
places and asked them advice, and they've given me some answers.
Exactly.
So you guys are very approachable.
If definitely ask the question.
Because it costs nothing to ask the question.
Exactly.
It does cost to enact the action on the question.
Yes, but it can cost you a lot if you don't ask the question as well.
Indeed. So,
Another point?
yes.
Okay. Have you taken into account the deposit you have to pay to the agent when you sign the contract? Because you have to pay a deposit upon the signing of the contract by both parties.
Is this deposit? I know it's a silly question.
No, it's not. I know what you're going to ask.
Is it
but ask
refundable?
Okay. Again,
If it doesn't work out.
Okay, this comes to contract law.
Yeah.
If you walk out on what we call the 5-day cooling off period, the vendor, or as we call them these days, seller, and the agent is entitled to 0.25% of the agreed purchase price.
Mm-hmm.
In all the years I've been doing real estate, very few people have done it, but they can. However, that deposit is totally refundable if you are unable to get your finance or if you are not happy with the building and pests. But it's all on time and schedules, and the solicitors and lawyers always use the term that time is of the essence.
And that's why it's 5 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's your 5-day cooling off period.
Right.
But if you've had a contract put down, it might be 21 days for finance, 21 days for building and pest. You have until 5 o'clock that afternoon if you are unable to meet those requirements.
Okay.
Then you can... you don't go ahead with the contract, we call it falling over, then you're entitled to your total deposit returned.
Okay, that makes sense. That's
Okay,
that's all right.
but getting back to allowing for the amount that you have to pay for your deposit, just make sure it has to be cleared funds, has to be cash, or you can't just sort of give a cheque and hope that it won't bounce, that type of thing. So make sure you've allowed for the amount of deposit that you have to put down when you are buying a home. Have you allowed for stamp duty? Okay.
That's a biggie because stamp
It
duty
is.
has existed since day dot. I mean, I remember my mum when I was a little tacker.
Yep.
She used to buy and sell property. Always a stamp duty. They were pretty little stamps back in those days. I don't know what they're like now, but having said that, they're not little $5 stamps either. They're $100
It's a
and
whole,
$200.
it's a whole form.
Yeah,
It's thousands of dollars.
it is thousands of dollars that you have to. What is stamp duty for? Can you explain that one?
It's the legal production, I guess, for your mortgage and so forth.
Okay.
In essence.
And
so,
it's a government tax?
but most definitely.
Okay.
It's normally payable at or before settlement, and it depends. The cost depends on whether it's your principal place of residence you're buying, and by that I mean that's the property you are buying to live in, or whether it's a investment property.
And does it vary between
Yes.
councils and all that sort of thing?
No, this is state.
It is a state,
This
so
is
it's
state.
so it does vary between states, though.
Different, yes. Victoria
Okay.
and different states have different fees.
Right.
Just as a little guide, and I've just picked a number here, for example, if you were in an owner-occupied home and you were spending $575,000 to buy that property, your stamp duty would be $11,750.
Wow.
Plus a transfer fee of $1,304.09, plus your mortgage registration fee of $152.10. So as you can see, you've got, $12,000, odd thousand to counter for there.
I'm going to be a bit flippant now. Is there no GST on any of that either? Or don't they calculate that as well?
So
Is
it's
that-
probably inclusive.
I mean, with all the taxes, you would have thought all the taxes would have been wiped out, but I mean, these are all specific taxes for a specific thing.
Most definitely.
And a bit hard to replace it with GST, but does the question is, does GST leak into that as well?
Well,
Is
you
that-
don't pay GST on top of it, no.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. If it was a $300,000 property, your stamp duty there is $3,000, and your transfer fee is $497.70. Your mortgage registration is the same; it's $152.10.
That's
Now-
a standard rate, is it?
Yes, that is.
Okay.
Yes. Now, on an investment property, just bearing in mind principal place of residence, if you're buying and it was a $300,000 home that you bought, your stamp duty is $3,000. On an investment property, it's $8,925,
Because it's an investment property.
which you can claim
Yeah.
partially on your tax.
Can you?
Yes.
On both cases or just the
No,
investment one?
only on investment.
Okay.
Okay, so that's, I guess, there. Now, if you are a first homeowner, you don't have stamp duty up to $500,000, I think it is these days. But you still have your transfer fee and your mortgage registration fee. So just bear that in mind, okay?
Right.
Set aside money for your moving costs.
Yes.
Unless you have a lot of friends with big trucks, set aside money for moving.
Yeah, and that cannot be. Sometimes that's not always that cheap.
No,
I mean,
it
it
can be
depends
a
how
few
far
thousand.
away you're going.
Exactly,
of course.
but again, these are the things you sort of have to factor in when you're buying. So okay, you're buying a $300,000 property. There's more to it than just the loan. Okay?
I guess allowing yourself time to actually pack your bags and boxes, too.
Well, this is another thing.
Yeah.
Try and organise time off from work if you
Yeah.
can. You know, most bosses would be acceptable to you taking a day off or something if you forewarn them and let them know.
But the average house is not going to take you a full day. It's going to take you a few days.
I think it's the
For a lot.
it's the move you have, particularly if you're moving out of one and into the other on the same
Well, yeah.
day. You have to factor in those times. Now, the nice, easy little things. One more other one with finance. Ensure you have funds for your building and pest inspection.
Yes, so they're not cheap
Yeah,
either.
no.
But it's essential
Well-
you do that, because if you don't,
Exactly. Whilst it's not cheap, you know, the people that do that are performing a service for which they've had to be trained and skilled on, so that type of thing. And bearing in mind that those few $100s that you spend can save you from buying a house that's infected with termites, all those sorts of things. So it's imperative and important to consider that. Simple things: ensure you redirect your mail. That's very important. Organise for your utilities to be connected, and by that I mean gas, hot water and electricity. Don't forget that. And also, don't be afraid to ask your agents, because there are companies that we deal with that we can just make a phone call and say, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Bloggs would like their power connected at 22 Smith Street on such and such a date, and they will organise it all for you.
we've got some bear in mind too, perhaps your water rates and your council rates. You need to notify them as well,
Well,
don't
the
you?
council will actually be notified through the
bill of sale?
the transfer.
Okay.
And yeah, so they will know that you've changed.
So you
your-
don't need to worry about
Oh, look, me probably, I would probably still advise, but I mean that should happen on the transfer.
But you never know, something might go wrong, and
Well,
letter might not go out at
We're
the
all
right time. And
we're all human. One other little thing with
Yeah.
if it's an investment property and you're buying, consider a quantity surveyor. Not everybody does it, but what they do, and it's a fee again, but they can come in and they actually do a proper depreciation schedule on everything in your property, so that when you go to your taxation to do your tax at the end of the financial year, theirs is very detailed and probably much more beneficial to help you with your taxation when you've got an investment property.
when you're buying a property, what happens if you find? I mean, because the surveyor should be able to tell you this as well. Whether
This
or not
is a
you're
quantity surveyor. This
Which
is
is
for
different.
this is for the items in your property that
Yeah.
you wish to depreciate against.
okay. The point I was going to try and make, because you mentioned surveyors, is what happens if you find the fences encroaching?
That's your title searches.
Yeah, and that
Okay?
covers that?
That's one of the fees that you need to ask your solicitor when you're starting, because they will send you. You'll have to tick and answer all these questions that
Right.
they ask.
Okay.
And on there will be the different types of searches that they do for you. Okay, so those title searches are important, but there's a lot of.
But they're
sorry,
optional.
not.
They're
Title
optional.
search is incorrect. The searches they can do regarding fence lines,
Right.
ownership, flooding, fuel. I mean, there are so many searches out there, but this is what you need to speak with your solicitor about.
And you don't have to necessarily do all of those searches.
No,
do you?
no.
But if you don't, then you really
There's
haven't done
usually
your.
the basic general ones that your solicitor would advise you should do.
All right.
Okay, but there are some that go into some flooding, different things like that, and that's probably advisable in the last few years.
Well, indeed. Now that the maps are all freed up, you don't have to pay for them anymore through the council here in Morton
no,
area.
they don't, but you can do a search on it as well.
Yeah, but it's good if you're moving to an area.
Oh,
it's good
yes.
to see where the flooding areas
Just
are.
get onto their website.
Yeah,
and
very
download
valuable.
and go onto the map section. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Now, as just a little bit with your selling, if you're looking at selling,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just make sure I've just put some notes down here so I don't get myself all confused. Okay. So, allow for your agent's commission.
No,
Be
yes.
nice.
Yeah, because they're doing the hard work.
Well, that's another thing I can talk about. But anyway, basically, I'm sticking with the $300,000 again. So an agent's commission on that would be $7,950. Now, Shane, you asked about GST. Yes, GST is on that.
Okay.
Okay, so another $795. That is for the service provided that we then forward on to the government.
So again, factor that into your
Yeah, so
calculation.
$8,745 on a $300,000 loan is commission paid to the agent when they sell your property.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fair enough.
All right. Allow for financial adjustments on your rates or your body corporate. Obviously, your solicitors takes notice of this and works it out for you. Any outstanding rates or body corporate levies are paid by you, but they have to be adjusted so that you only pay up to the date of settlement.
After that, then it becomes the next person's
Well, it becomes
responsibility.
the buyers that get
Yeah.
shared and sorted out.
Yeah.
Also, if you have paid for anything prior to settlement that you may have already paid different stuff with your bank or your fees there, let your solicitor know, because they work all that out upon settlement as to the money you will get back.
As
or
a
what
pro
have you.
rata.
Well, if
Yeah.
you've paid anything prior to, you might have paid for your searches or something. Just always
Yeah.
let them know,
Okay.
because they have to factor that in.
Yep.
Also allow for your solicitor's costs on conveyancing. Again, shop around. But, on buying a home, your fee will probably be over the $1,000. On selling a home, because there's less involved, it's probably around that $600, but please ring around and check with that. Again, comes into how many things you wish to be done.
It's not a simple task, is it?
No, it's not. No.
There's a lot to factor
There's
in
a
all
lot,
this.
and it is a lot, and that's why it can be daunting, and that's why most agents will try, honestly, we do try to help, particularly, first-time people. Look, go see your solicitor, talk to them, go and talk to your financial people, because in the end, you can do a lot of work, and if you haven't factored in all these things and you've set your heart on this property and you can't get the money and you haven't done it, everyone's done a lot of work for nothing.
Yeah. The other side of the coin is it's all safeguards to ensure that when
Most
you buy your
definitely.
property, nothing comes back onto you.
Exactly.
And you can say, oh, I didn't know that. Well, you should have known it, because if you'd done all these checklisted things, you would have known. And for the person that has sold the property, it doesn't come back on them from the new tenants, new people that's owning the new place, come back on the old people.
And that's
Because
why you have your solicitors.
you have it's communicating and making sure everything's done kosher and all the rest of it. Everybody knows exactly what the scenario is, and when they sign on the dotted line, bang, they've agreed to it.
One other little thing, again with the purchasers, do book your removalists, arrange to, take time off, same with the buyer as you are the seller. One other thing in this day and age, and it's become with your mortgages, just make sure if you're selling your home that there's no exit fees or anything on your mortgage that you haven't accounted for.
Yes.
That, maybe the house, you may not have sold it for as much as you wanted because of the way the economy is. Just make sure you check your mortgage with your banking institution when you're selling as to where you stand there.
I know you're not a banker, but how flexible are banks with negotiating that? If you've been a good customer,
Look, banks, if you go and talk to them, a lot of the banks will, they will talk to you. They'll sit and try
Work
and
out
work
something.
out something, yeah. And again, just talk to them. Everything these days is so much communication out there everywhere that I think everyone is more open to these things, and your banking institutions are no different.
Okay, sounds good. And that's our checklist.
That's our checklist.
And we'll be coming back talking about what next.
I think we'll talk a little bit about the bond online procedure that's happening with our tenants.
Yes, I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to
Okay.
have a bit more insight. More of this in just a few moments. Right now, time for a good bit of music from the Ace of Base up next. Moreton Bay Area's #1 radio station, live on the radio, 101.5 FM. Don't forget our phone number, 5495-1015, 5495-1015, or email. It is a good idea to email these days, because everybody not everybody has got the internet, but just about everybody has. And if you know how to use your email client, just email us at radio@1015fm.com.au. That's radio@1015fm.com.au. In the subject field, you can always mark it Shane or Lee Chippendale
Yes.
for the real estate program. You can always put in there so we know where it goes to, because we get thousands of emails every day.
Most definitely.
And if you're writing one to either one of us here on air at the moment, if you don't put the name in there or the program, no one's going to know who it goes to, so unless they read it through, and of course, maybe private email. The subject matter, you just put our names, or perhaps just real estate program or magazine show. It'll get to us, won't it?
It will, most
All right.
definitely.
Do you get a lot of emails from the result of
Yes.
the programs you do?
Yes, we do get some information. We've had a few calls.
What sort of things do people talk about when they write to you?
Oh, lots of things.
I'm not trying to get personal. Are there questions in the mix of that?
Yes, there are, and a lot of people will, I've had different people say, well, I heard on the show you were speaking about such and such the other day. Can you inform me a little bit more about that?
Cool.
Yeah, so, it's definitely beneficial to people.
And very positive, which is good to see. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about...
Yeah, online access to bond loans. It's been pretty successful.
Yeah.
Okay, the application process for the Department of Housing and Public Works bond loans is proving popular with Queensland tenants.
Okay.
So this has been researched by the REIQ. Since the launch of the online application process in March 2012, almost 7,000 online applications have been received and 1,600 loans have been pre-approved. So that's encouraging.
Right.
Bond loans have bond loans have been helping people secure housing in the private rental market since 1991, so it's been out there for a while. A bond loan, just for those of you who don't know, it's an interest-free loan up to a maximum of 4 weeks' rent to help tenants pay a rental bond. The loan has to be repaid and an eligibility criteria has to be met.
Right.
Yeah.
So normally you'd be a recipient of Centrelink.
Yeah,
in some form.
that's correct.
That'd be the number one thing. Number two, it would have to be within the ability for you to make payments anyway. They could refuse you if the house costed too much, for example.
Yeah,
You're going into
there's a lot
$500,
of criteria. Yeah, that you wouldn't. That's correct.
I think because I did actually pick up a form. It was
Yes.
like 20 pages, I think it was.
Yeah, of course.
But it wasn't that difficult to go through it all.
And look, it has to be repaid.
Yeah.
So pre-approved bond loans, they're also available online.
Yeah.
So if you have your computer and you want to look online, you can. Approved applicants are provided with a letter stating that they have the funds available for the bond, and that can be shown to us agents, okay, which is great.
Yeah.
The department pays bond loans directly to the Residential Tenancies Act, because that's the body that has to look after the bonds and do that. Information on the bond loans, if you're wanting online, it's available at blarga.communities.queensland.gov.au/home.aspx. Now, that's a fair bit. I'll read that again.
Now, that Queensland's QLD, is it not?
Yes, I'm sorry, QLD, correct. blarga.communities.qld.gov.au/capital HOME.aspx. So you may want to do that. But look, also just ask your agent, because they'll be able to direct you as well.
Indeed, and it's a great idea. You can do it online as well as go into
Most
the
definitely.
housing. Now, there's one in Chermside. No, there's one
There's
here
one
in
here in
Caboolture?
King Street.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a taxation office up here as well?
Yes, I think so.
Good. I'll have to look that up.
I'm sure there is.
Sorry, I just want to ask you another question. Just
I'm not sure about that one.
That's all right. I'll have a look myself. But there are housing places.
Oh, actually,
Whereabouts-
no, the taxation department, I think, is in Chermside, the closest. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I'll double check. But whereabouts is the housing place up here?
It is up in the top floor at Kmart.
Really? Just on King Street?
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Excellent. So you know where to go now.
And the bond loans, now, of course, they're paid back, so the bond actually becomes your bond
Yes.
eventually.
Correct. Well,
So
it's,
that
it's
if you
your
don't do
bond.
if you don't do the right thing at the
Oh,
end of your
most
tenure,
definitely.
then you lose that.
Correct. But you would
Government
still
doesn't
have to.
lose.
Well, you'd still have to pay back the
Yeah.
the bond loan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But essentially, once you pay that off, that bond is then yours.
Yes.
And if you do the wrong thing, you lose that.
Well,
You know, if
that
you do
is
the wrong- yeah.
that is for any tenant if they
That's right.
don't do the right
So the
thing.
government doesn't lose that one because you've already paid them back.
Well, you're supposed to be paying them back.
That's
yes.
right.
All those criteria are explained to you with them.
You know, there is a lot of help out there for people.
There's a
It's
huge amount of help out there.
and advice. You guys give this advice as well.
We do.
If you're not quite sure.
Yes. All agents, all property managers and officers would do the same.
Stunning stuff. Love
Yes.
It. Is there anything
There
else
to
we
help.
need? Is there anything
Not
else?
on that one. If we have time, I know you're wanting to do some other things, and,
Yes, we
and
do.
we'll see how we'll go for time with some of the legislation updates.
All right, that will come up fairly shortly here at 101.5 FM. Very quickly right now, it's coming up to about 14 to news time. While we're at it, we should remind people there's a couple of accidents and things happening right now. In Anzac Avenue in Mango Hill, there is a signal fault all directions. Traffic signals are flashing yellow at the moment. There are no delays. We're not sure if the police are there yet. However, we do advise that people, if you find the signals going a bit off like that, just take turns like everybody else does, and don't be too much of in a rush to get through those lights, and try to avoid it if you can. That's at Redcliffe Road and North Lakes Drive exit, and that's at Anzac Avenue in Mango Hill. Now, also happening today is Sandgate Road in Virginia. The signal fault down there also happening at Robinson Road East and Vauxhall Street. And there's been a report of a fire services incident, car on fire, in Nunda, in Station Road. Steer clear of those areas at the moment. All of our trains are running on schedule at the moment, which is good news, and we'll be back with more on the legislative side of things coming up next here at 101.5 FM. Yes, indeed. Time to say hello to Banksia Beach, a coastal suburb on Bribie Island, and so named after the Banksia plants grown in plentiful numbers in the area. It's a very good morning to Banksia Beach. And back to the real estate program.
Yes, basically I'll touch on the legislation update.
Okay.
As I said last year, the Minister for Housing and Public Works asked for opinions on the Tenancy Act. So they have released a discussion paper. So please out there, don't get into panic. This is a discussion paper at the moment, so nothing's written in gold as yet. The objectives of the review were to make a balance for the interests of tenants and lessors, also streamline deliveries of the services and to try to reduce red tape. So the REIQ is the body that talks very much so with the government on these issues and also the feedback that came in. One of the things they're trying to introduce is the introduction of direct tenant charging for water. Now, this would eliminate the current problems associated with water charging, such as meeting water efficiency requirements, lessors passing on water accounts long after they've been received and so forth. I really don't know how they're going to do this because it's different to electricity. Electricity, they can just press a button and the electricity's cut off.
Yeah.
Tenant leaves, water cutting off. I see the water issue is a real problem for landlords and tenants and the office handling them. It would be great if it was like the electricity. You know, it was in your name, you paid for the water you used. Obviously, the landlord still has to pay for the connection somehow.
Yeah.
So that's a big one.
And if you stay under the water level, there's a certain amount you're allocated.
Yes, there is.
If you stay under that continuously, then obviously you're doing the right thing.
Yes.
You probably shouldn't be, charged anything if you're a tenant. I don't know. That's my...
Okay.
Again, it's an idea that I've heard.
All right.
A lot of people would argue.
If your property is water compliant, which
Yep.
means it's had the plumbers do the water flow register and everything like that,
Yeah.
you were charged for the water that you use.
Okay.
Okay?
Is that across the board in all rental places?
If it's water compliant.
Okay.
If you're not, you're charged usually what in the old terms we called excess water.
Yes.
Right,
I've
which
heard
is
that,
above the amount that you sort of...
And if you never reach that excess...
No, well, the landlord pays it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that's I think that's a hard one for them to figure out, but it would be nice to see them figure it out one way or the other because it's a nightmare for the agencies, I know.
Yeah, it's a real kettle of worms, that one. What else we got in there?
Okay, basically they're trying to also, again, additional bond payments, they're stating, should be permitted. And they're asking things should reflect individual circumstances. So they're sort of saying a bit more bond if you have pets, a bit more bond if you have pools, a bit more bond if you have furnished premises. So that'll be interesting.
It's good if you don't have pets and you're pretty basic, then you won't have that problem. But I mean, the other side of the coin is
exactly
a lot of people who have pets
very responsible.
Well, some of them aren't though.
Yeah.
And then there's a big mess, and someone's got to clean it up. And
that's what your bond is for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the point is,
But the cost
do we have an extra $10 or something for that? Again, bearing in mind, people, these are just, this is a discussion paper at the moment. There is nothing in, this is feedback that has been put forward, okay?
Okay.
They're also trying, the REIQ is trying to recommend the introduction of consistent and equal notice periods for both tenants and lessors. So there's really different notice periods out there. So it might be, 7 days that you've had a breach and so you can only have it from this to that. So they're going to try...
So there's no standardisation?
There is, but I think they're going to try and make that more standard. The one that they're aiming at is the requirements for tenants to provide only 14 days notice to leave in a fixed term tenancy, which is, a bit hard for the landlord when they're trying to get that happening. So they're trying to make those things a little bit more even-keeled.
Right.
So, and look, there's many more things that I could discuss, but that at the moment. There's also information there that they're not very happy with how the QCAP process is transpiring, so they're looking into articles with that as well.
Okay.
The QCAT was the thing that was supposed to take over from the magistrate and supposed to make things more even flowing. I know just on simple matters, just a basic thing, people can be waiting,
Is that because
weeks.
Is that because there's not enough people to adjudicate on the case?
I don't know.
Oh, really?
I don't know. That would be something that...
Only QCAT wouldn't be able to tell us.
Exactly.
We should get them on the line
We
one
should
day.
try and get someone to speak to that. I might try and look into that one.
Please. That would be awesome. And we can have a chat to them and find out exactly what is the go. Yeah. Why is it so?
Yeah, probably a backup, probably lack of people who would know. But I know there's you know, there's some dramas out there that
It's
they're
what we
trying
do
to correct.
best, so we might as well pose the question while we're at it. So
We
see
may
what
as
you can
well.
do and organise
I'll see what
that.
I can find out.
Alrighty.
And that probably wraps me up because we haven't got
It
time
does.
to talk about all the rest of
Now,
the
once
stuff.
again, you're not here next week.
No, I'm here in a
So
fortnight.
I've got the whole program to myself.
You can
next week.
chat away all you like.
But you are going to give me a bit of a heads up what's happening in the next show sometime
Not a
next week.
problem.
And then the following week, you and I will be back in the
We
studio
will.
live.
Sounds lovely.
Have a great week.
Yes, I hope everybody out there has a good week, and I hope you've taken on board a little bit of the information we've spoken about.